Have you ever sat alone with a memory so strong it almost felt alive? The quiet weight of grief pressing on your chest while wondering if the person you loved can somehow see you now? You picture them during those moments when tears fall without warning, or when an unexpected spark of joy brings them instantly to mind. It is a question as old as humanity itself. When someone we cherish dies, do they truly vanish, or can they still witness our lives? Centuries of seekers have asked, and tonight the wisdom of Saint Teresa of Avila, doctor of the Church and master of mystical theology, offers an answer that the Catholic tradition has quietly affirmed all along. Imagine yourself in your living room. Perhaps you hold a photograph worn soft at the edges, or a small piece of jewelry once warmed by their touch. You stare and you wonder, are they really gone, or do they remain present in ways your eyes cannot measure? The ache in your heart argues that love so deep cannot simply dissolve. Your soul seems to know a truth that reason struggles to name, that bonds formed in real love are not limited by death. Saint Teresa explains why that instinct is right. In her great work, The Interior Castle, Teresa describes how the soul united with God begins to share in a clarity far beyond normal understanding. She wrote that a soul joined to God sees all things in the light of His eternity. These are not just poetic lines. They are the record of a woman who entered mystical union with the divine and carefully documented what she experienced. Teresa insists that when a soul reaches perfect union, it contemplates reality not through human limits, but through the infinite perspective of the Creator. What does this mean for those you love, who have already stepped into eternity? According to Teresa and the constant teaching of the Catholic Church, the blessed in heaven enjoy what Scripture calls the Beatific vision. They see God face to face. In that vision, they do not lose interest in earthly life. Rather, they see it through God's own knowledge and love. They perceive your journey not as distant spectators peeking through some heavenly window, but as souls sharing in God's care for you. Perhaps you have felt it. During deep prayer or quiet reflection, a sudden awareness of your departed loved one's nearness. That gentle sense of presence is not mere imagination. Teresa's writings confirm that communion between heaven and earth is more than metaphor. In her letters, she assures us, the soul that loves truly in God never loses its connection with those it cherishes. According to her testimony, the souls in glory view our lives without the restless worry or sorrow that weigh on us. Their perspective is the calm certainty of divine understanding. When your mother passed after a long illness, when your father closed his eyes for the last time, when your child was taken too soon, they did not stop loving you. Their love was purified, lifted, transformed into something far stronger than human affection. Teresa used the image of a clear crystal flooded with light. A soul united to God, she said, reflects divine brightness and knows in God the needs of those still on earth. Your loved ones, now perfected in that light, see your prayers rising like incense, as the book of Revelation describes. They understand not just your spoken requests, but the hidden growth God is shaping through every trial. They perceive how today's hardships refine your heart and prepare you for eternal union with Him. When you kneel at night and whisper, "Mom, if you can hear me, help me through this," you are not speaking into emptiness. The Catholic teaching of the communion of saints, embraced fully by Teresa, affirms a living exchange between those on earth, the souls being purified, and the blessed in heaven. Your prayers reach the hearts of those who now love you with the perfect love of Christ Himself. If this truth stirs something inside you, take a moment to let it settle. Teresa often invited her listeners to respond with action, not just thought. She would say that when a spiritual insight moves your heart, speak it aloud or write it down, because doing so strengthens the reality of the grace you have received. Even now, you might feel drawn to whisper a simple prayer. Saint Teresa, teach me to trust the communion of saints. Such a declaration, she believed, not only deepens your own faith, but may also give courage to someone else who hears it. Teresa herself recorded encounters that confirm this living connection. In her spiritual diary, she described moments when the souls of those who had died appeared to her not as ghostly figures, but in vivid, mystical vision. They came not to frighten or entertain, but to assure her of their ongoing love and to intercede for those still on earth. I have seen souls who have departed this life, she wrote, and they burn with such pure love for those they left behind that they constantly intercede before the throne of the Most High. These were not passing dreams or fanciful illusions. The Church examined these experiences carefully and recognized them as authentic signs of the supernatural life. Through these visions, Teresa came to understand that the blessed do not watch our lives with anxiety or earthly concern. Instead, they look upon us with the unshakable wisdom of God Himself. When you face an impossible decision at work, when you spend long nights caring for a sick parent, when you raise children in an uncertain world, they see more than the surface struggle. They perceive the hidden presence of God in every moment, even when you cannot. They recognize how each challenge shapes the soul, how every difficulty can become a doorway to grace. For Teresa, this was not a romantic idea, but a theological reality. Souls who behold God participate in His knowledge. They see the purpose behind every event, joys and sorrows alike. Your heartbreak that seems meaningless, your financial worry that feels crushing, your health challenge that appears senseless. They see how each thread is woven into a greater design. They perceive the perseverance being born in you, the trust being strengthened, the faith being purified. From their vantage point, nothing is random. Everything carries eternal meaning. Perhaps the most surprising part of Teresa's teaching is that the saints and the blessed are not passive observers. They are active participants in God's providence. In a letter to her spiritual daughters, she wrote, "Those who have gone before us in holy death continue to labor for our salvation, presenting our needs before the Divine Majesty with an efficacy we cannot imagine." Think of that. Your loved ones who died in the friendship of Christ are not helpless memories. They are powerful intercessors. When unexpected opportunities arise, when you receive help from unlikely places, when strength comes at the very moment you thought you had none left, it may well be the fruit of their prayer. Teresa understood that the communion of saints is animated by divine love, a force far more effective than any human assistance. A single prayer offered from the glory of heaven, perfectly aligned with God's will, can accomplish more than 1,000 earthly efforts. Modern research on the effects of prayer cannot fully explain this mystery, yet even scientific studies have noted measurable benefits when people are prayed for, even if they never know the prayers are happening. Teresa, centuries earlier, already knew through experience that prayer moves reality. Freed from the limits of the body, souls in heaven intercede with a purity and power beyond anything we can manage on earth. Have you ever received a sudden provision just when you were out of options? A phone call or message arriving at the precise moment you felt alone? Or a flash of insight that solved a problem you had wrestled with for months? Teresa would quietly remind you that these may be signs of intercession, your loved ones at work in ways you cannot see, their petitions echoing perfectly within God's eternal plan. Teresa often urged her listeners not to take this hidden support for granted. Gratitude, she explained, strengthens the bond between earth and heaven. When you pause to thank God for the quiet interventions you suspect but cannot fully prove, you invite even greater grace. This is not a transaction or a bargain. It is an opening of the heart. A grateful soul becomes more receptive, more attentive to the subtle movements of the Spirit. Teresa wrote that thanksgiving is itself a form of prayer that delights heaven and draws the saints nearer. She also warned against the common mistake, imagining that heavenly help excuses us from our own responsibility. Intercession, no matter how powerful, does not remove the call to action. If you are facing conflict at home, you must still speak the hard truth with love. If you struggle with a habit that harms you, you must still take concrete steps to change. Teresa believed that divine assistance is meant to empower human effort, not replace it. The saints pray for courage, wisdom, and perseverance, but you must walk the path with your own feet. Consider the way a parent guides a child learning to walk. The parent watches every step, ready to catch the child if needed, yet allows the child to move forward, to stumble, to grow stronger through practice. In the same way, those in heaven support us without taking over. They cheer us on with a love deeper than any earthly relationship. Their prayers create a space where our freedom and God's grace meet, where genuine transformation becomes possible. Teresa's own life was a testament to this balance. She faced relentless opposition, political pressure from church authorities, physical illness, and seasons of spiritual dryness when God felt distant. Yet she pressed forward, reforming her order and founding new convents across Spain. She often attributed her endurance to the combined strength of divine grace and the intercession of saints who had gone before her. Their prayers did not remove her hardships. They gave her the courage to face them. In one striking passage, Teresa describes a night when she felt completely alone. Convinced that her mission would fail, she entered the chapel to pray and sensed an unseen presence surrounding her, as if an entire choir of saints was lifting her spirit. No words were spoken, but she left renewed, able to continue her work with a calm that defied explanation. For her, such moments confirm that heaven is not a distant reality but a present help. This understanding can change the way we view loss. When someone you love dies, grief can feel like a heavy silence. Yet Teresa invites you to see death not as an end, but as a transformation of the relationship. The person you love is no longer bound by distance or time. Freed from weakness and pain, they can now love you more completely, intercede for you more effectively, and remain closer to you in spirit than they ever could in life. She would encourage you to speak to them, not in a superstitious way, but as part of the communion of saints. Share your struggles, ask for their prayers, and listen in the quiet of your heart. You may not hear words, but you might notice a gentle consolation, an unexpected idea, or a sudden peace. These subtle gifts are not coincidences. They are signs of a living connection that continues beyond the grave. As you grow in this awareness, you may find yourself more attentive to the sacred in daily life. Ordinary moments, a breeze through an open window, a sudden memory, a phrase of scripture that seems to appear at just the right time, can become reminders that you are not alone. Teresa taught that the spiritual and the ordinary are not separate worlds. Heaven and earth are interwoven, and those who have entered God's presence move freely in that mysterious unity, guiding us toward the same eternal joy. Teresa's insight invites a practical question. How can you stay aware of this living connection without turning it into superstition or distraction? She advised beginning with silence. In her own prayer life, moments of quiet listening were as important as words. Silence is not empty. It is the space where you notice gentle nudges of grace. By setting aside a few minutes each day to be still, you allow the mind to settle and the heart to open, making it easier to sense the subtle encouragement of those who pray for you from heaven. She also recommended anchoring this silence with scripture or simple prayers. A short verse, a familiar psalm, or a phrase like, "Lord, I am here," can focus your thoughts and keep them grounded. Teresa believed that sacred words act like a lamp in the dark, helping you recognize when a thought or inspiration truly reflects God's presence. Without this grounding, it's easy to confuse fleeting feelings with divine guidance. Another practice she found helpful was remembering specific saints or loved ones when facing particular challenges. If she struggled with courage, she thought of saints who endured persecution. When she needed patience, she recalled the quiet strength of Mary. You can do the same. Call to mind a person whose life reflects the virtue you seek, and ask them to pray with you. This is not about magic words. It is about companionship, about drawing strength from examples of faithfulness. Teresa warned, however, against relying solely on extraordinary experiences. She had visions and mystical moments, but she repeatedly told her followers not to chase them. Genuine spiritual growth, she insisted, shows itself in daily virtues, kindness, humility, perseverance, and forgiveness. If a supposed spiritual encounter does not lead to these fruits, it is better left aside. The goal is not to collect experiences but to become more loving and more free. She extended this caution to the words we speak within our homes. In her view, language carries power. Words can bless or wound, invite peace or stir conflict. Teresa once wrote that careless speech creates an atmosphere where negativity thrives. To keep a home spiritually healthy, she urged families to practice gentleness in conversation, to avoid gossip and harsh criticism. Even when disagreements arise, the tone of voice and the intention behind words matter as much as the content. This attention to language connects deeply with her belief that heaven and earth are intertwined. When you speak words of blessing, gratitude, or encouragement, you are cooperating with the quiet work of the saints. You create a household that resonates with harmony, making it easier for everyone to notice and respond to God's presence. Conversely, when words turn bitter or mocking, you create dissonance, a kind of spiritual static that drowns out those subtle invitations to grace. Teresa often encouraged her communities to sing simple hymns together, even during times of tension. Music, she said, shifts the atmosphere and softens hearts. You might not live in a convent, but the principle remains. Shared moments of prayer, song, or even quiet reflection can reset the tone of a family, reminding everyone of a deeper unity. Her counsel also included hospitality. For Teresa, opening your door to a neighbor or a stranger is not only an act of kindness but a spiritual practice. When you welcome others, you welcome Christ, and you create space where divine love can be experienced in tangible ways. Hospitality, she believed, strengthens the invisible bonds between people and the communion of saints, turning ordinary rooms into places of encounter. Living with this awareness does not mean life will be free of hardship. Teresa herself endured illness, misunderstanding, and opposition to her reforms. Yet she discovered that when a household is filled with prayerful silence, careful words, music, and hospitality, challenges become opportunities for grace. The presence of those who love you from heaven becomes more perceptible, not as a dramatic intervention, but as a steady current of peace beneath the surface of daily life. In this way, every room of your home can become a quiet chapel, every conversation a chance to echo the love that binds heaven and earth. Teresa invites you to see your ordinary surroundings, not as barriers to the sacred, but as the very places where holiness unfolds. This vision of a home alive with quiet holiness naturally shapes the way we approach conflict and difficulty. Teresa understood that no family or community escapes moments of tension. What matters, she said, is how those moments are handled. When disagreements arise, begin by pausing before you speak. A single breath can turn sharp words into careful ones, and careful words can keep hearts open. Teresa often reminded her sisters that patience is a form of love. By slowing the pace of an argument, you make room for understanding and give the spirit space to work. She also emphasized forgiveness as a daily discipline, not a rare heroic act. Forgiveness, in her teaching, is a steady habit of releasing resentment before it hardens. This practice does not excuse harmful behavior, but it frees you from being chained to past hurts. Teresa believed that holding grudges blocks the flow of grace within a household, while even small gestures of reconciliation invite healing. A kind glance, a gentle word, or a quiet prayer for someone who has wronged you can begin to restore what anger has broken. To sustain these virtues, Teresa turned to simple rhythms of prayer woven through ordinary tasks. She spoke of praying while you work, keeping a soft awareness of God even while cooking, cleaning, or walking. In her view, the divine is not limited to church walls or set hours. By lifting small thoughts of gratitude or brief petitions throughout the day, you transform chores into opportunities for communion. This constant but gentle recollection helps you remain centered, even when the world outside feels chaotic. Teresa's teaching also invites you to view your home as a school of love, where each person's growth is shared. She encouraged communities to celebrate one another's gifts openly, compliment a child's creativity, thank a partner for unseen labor, or recognize a friend's quiet perseverance. Such acknowledgments, she believed, nourish both giver and receiver. They create a culture of appreciation that mirrors the mutual delight of heaven. Hospitality, too, continues to play a vital role. Teresa liked to say that when you open your door, you open your heart. She urged her followers to welcome visitors with warmth, not for show, but as an act of genuine service. A simple meal, a listening ear, or a clean place to rest can reveal the love of God more clearly than lofty speeches. Through such acts, the boundaries between everyday life and sacred encounter fade. Music and shared rituals further deepen this atmosphere. Teresa observed that singing or praying together strengthens unity and lifts burdens. Even a single candle lit during a quiet evening prayer can shift the mood of an entire household. These practices do not need to be elaborate. What matters is the intention, to remember that every moment can be touched by the eternal. She was careful, however, to warn against perfectionism. A holy home is not a flawless home. Laughter, mistakes, and ordinary noise belong in the picture. Teresa herself enjoyed humor and simple pleasures, believing that joy is a sign of spiritual health. She encouraged her companions to laugh together, to tell stories, and to celebrate small victories. Joy, she said, is contagious and draws others toward the light. This balanced approach, serious in devotion, yet free in spirit, makes her guidance timeless. By blending prayer with play, silence with song, and forgiveness with honest conversation, a family creates a dwelling that reflects the love of God in tangible ways. Teresa's wisdom shows that sanctity is not a rarefied state for a select few, but a way of living available to anyone willing to cultivate presence, patience, and compassion. As you carry these insights into your own life, notice how even subtle changes, gentler words, a moment of stillness, a shared smile begin to reshape the atmosphere around you. These small choices create ripples that reach far beyond what you can see, aligning your daily routines with the quiet, sustaining grace that Teresa trusted more than anything. Carrying forward Teresa's guidance, the final piece of cultivating a sacred home lies in the intentional practice of gratitude. Teresa emphasized that the heart attuned to God sees blessings in every corner of life, no matter how small. When you acknowledge these moments, whether a warm meal, a shared conversation, or simply the sunrise, you invite peace to settle deeply within your home. Gratitude transforms routine into reverence, reminding every soul under your roof that divine presence is ever near. Equally important is the recognition that each member of your household is on a spiritual journey. Teresa urged patience and compassion, understanding that everyone struggles and grows at their own pace. Instead of judgment, she encouraged curiosity about the unseen battles of others, offering prayer and encouragement rather than criticism. This practice nurtures trust, fosters empathy, and strengthens the invisible threads that bind hearts together. In such an environment, love becomes a guiding principle rather than a fleeting emotion. Teresa also advised creating spaces that encourage reflection and quiet. A corner with a small crucifix, a few candles, or a comfortable chair for prayer can become a sanctuary amid life's busyness. These moments of stillness are not only restorative but also formative, helping individuals recognize God's presence in ordinary life. They remind every inhabitant that holiness is not limited to extraordinary actions, but is cultivated in daily attentiveness and mindfulness. Daily habits, when combined with intentional reflection, produce enduring results. Teresa highlighted the transformative power of repetition, prayers whispered each morning, acts of kindness repeated without notice, small gestures of forgiveness offered consistently. These habits, though seemingly minor, create a rhythm that stabilizes the household and draws it into harmony with divine order. Over time, they establish an atmosphere where love, peace, and patience are felt tangibly by all who enter. Community involvement, she noted, extends this sacred space beyond the home. Families and households do not exist in isolation. Their spiritual practices radiate outward, touching neighbors, friends, and even strangers. When a household embodies the principles Teresa outlined, grace in speech, warmth in hospitality, patience in conflict, it becomes a beacon of light, a microcosm of heaven on earth. Actions inspired by mystical awareness ripple outward, reminding all that sanctity is practical, lived, and shared. Finally, Teresa's writings underscore the importance of hope. Even in moments of trial, she encouraged steadfastness in God's providence. She taught that suffering, when embraced with faith, becomes a teacher, a refining fire that strengthens character and deepens love. No sorrow is wasted. Each moment, even painful ones, contributes to a spiritual maturity that nurtures both the individual and the household. Her wisdom reminds us that homes are not just spaces of shelter but crucibles for spiritual growth. As you integrate these practices, notice subtle transformations. Conversations may carry more patience, laughter may echo more freely, and the ordinary moments of daily life may acquire a new depth of meaning. The home becomes a laboratory for love, a place where the eternal is made tangible through attention, prayer, and intentional care. By embracing Teresa's teachings, you move beyond the notion of home as a mere physical space. It becomes a living testament to divine presence, a reflection of heaven on earth, a place where souls flourish under the gentle guidance of God's love. Tonight, as you reflect on these insights, remember that sanctity is not a distant ideal, but a daily practice. Through prayer, patience, forgiveness, gratitude, and attentiveness, you can create a home where the spirit feels nourished and love is tangible. Teresa's guidance offers a path to harmonize the seen and unseen, to weave holiness into everyday life, and to transform ordinary spaces into vessels of grace. Your home, touched by these principles, becomes more than shelter. It becomes a sanctuary, a place where God's light dwells and where every soul can encounter the divine in the rhythms of ordinary life. In embracing Teresa's timeless wisdom, you participate in the unfolding of a sacred narrative, one where your home becomes a beacon of love, hope, and enduring peace. Each day, each word, each gesture can reflect eternity itself, creating a dwelling not only of safety but of spiritual vitality. Let this be the legacy you cultivate for yourself, your loved ones, and all who enter your doors, turning every moment into an opportunity to experience and share divine love.